Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. I'm going to play a video for you, and in that video, after it, I'm going to narrate that atheism does not give the answer to good morals if we move away from religion. So let's watch the video of a bull being tortured, and from that video, we're going to make a point against atheism. Now, as you witnessed in that video, we saw an entertainment played in Spain where they torture bulls, and they basically do it for thrill and entertainment. This is their moral standards. Now, I raised a question in the comment section, and it basically took off, where I basically tried to say that through religious instruction, we could lead to good. And that according to atheism and according to their moral standard, there is no good or bad. I mean, even if there is, it's just subjective. If it's good for you, it may be bad for others. If it's bad for others, it may be good for them. So it's interchangeable, basically. And there's no moral compass on objective morals according to atheism. So basically my argument was that, the atheists would say, if we moved away from religion, we can pick what is good and what is bad. We can choose what is morally right. But this is misleading, and it doesn't make any sense, because in the scientific method there is no good or bad. And it's basically just subjective. So let's just run through it and see my points, and we'll see what the atheist has said, and we will counter that reply. So basically my question was, and this is in reference to the people in Spain doing these things, to bulls, I said, are these people predominantly Christian or atheist or non-religious party goers? I'm fascinated in wanting to know what ideological moral standard they follow. If we can figure out the root cause, we may be able to re-educate them. And I'm coming from the Islamic Muslim position, because we are told to treat animals in kindness. See, that's a moral compass right there. And Pauline Davis wrote, this is cultural, which is totally different from religion. Apparently, it's a cultural practice. It's got nothing to do with religion. Do Diesel writes, I think he's an atheist. He writes, whilst religion may drive some people to do bad things, as gang crusades, this is simply some of Spain's general sadism and cruelty on show. They get pleasure from terror, torture, pain, and death. What a dark psycho. But then you see that fat rich American paying huge money to shoot and drag a giraffe and then posing with its corpse. Shame on them. So my response was to Pauline, actually, who said that this is cultural and not religious. And then we'll move on to Do Diesel. I said to Pauline Davis, is it possible this culture derives from Judeo-Christian biblical standards? No mercy to animals. For example, in 1 Samuel 15:3, it says, destroy them, or spare them not, kill cattle, sheep, camels, and donkeys. Or perhaps could this culture be blamed on atheistic ethical standards, which may at times entertain the idea that there is no objective morals, and should we be able to define our own moral standards? It's pretty difficult and complex. I would love to interview these people and find out what's really going on in their heads, and where or how does this culture all fit in with their other ideological systems or beliefs. It's fascinating. Now, of course, I pinched the nerve of an atheist, and Drew comes back and he says, I'll just go to the second paragraph, which is relevant to what he said. It says, or maybe we should all leave these ancient books behind and act in the 21st century way based on basic principles of morality. Apparently there's basic principles of morality, decency, and simply behaving in a way that causes no harm to others. Many of us need no religion. Insert type dominant in your gang religion for our moral standards and may well be free and better off without any ancient confusion. So he's made 2 points here. The first point is that we should leave these ancient books, he's talking about religious texts, behind, and our morality shouldn't come from that. And moral values should come from our own conscience, basically our own decencies and so forth. And, it shouldn't come from any ancient text. And my response to him is, as for your comment saying we need no religion and we are better off, I would argue that the atheist mindset on moral standards, which could still be equally catastrophic, as it has no real moral standard, or say, agreed upon a moral standard. Diesel then writes back and says, I don't think we need a religious instruction, manual or moral standard and good behavior. In fact, no two religious manuals would ever agree, as they are all out of themselves and their tribe, and in fact non-believers should be struck down etc. for daring to think independently and rationally. Morally repugnant gang behavior that I think most things in life are blindingly, plainly, clearly obvious. It's very clearly obvious. Good or bad behavior. It's easy to judge that based on the impact any behavior has on others. And then we have laws that tend to agree with that is defined acceptable and unacceptable. So no, I'm good, thanks. In fact, I'm free to do a lot better than most self-serving religious tribes. My response to him, Diesel, the scientific method doesn't say we can't behave badly. These are only social constructs, political correctness that may define what is right and wrong. Atheism depends on its own subjective morals. So you may pick to choose to act humanely with animals. Another different atheist may just very well go with his own set of rules and desires in wanting to grasp entertainment and pleasure out of hurting animals, like shooting animals for sport and getting all the thrill out of it. As soon as you assert that only good behavior is acceptable is when you have forced your own moral standards on the rest, which again has no scientific basis. Scientific basis does not define good and evil. There is no measuring stick for this. This is why to me religious instruction is necessary, because at least it outlines the right and wrong and gives no room for entertaining the desires and wishes for both parties. Whereas under the atheistic method, it just depends on your own consciences. For example, the act of bestiality is disputed. Some secular Western countries allow it, while most of the Western countries make it illegal. Yet every Muslim country makes it illegal. Thus, in secular atheism, they don't have one moral objective standard. Either party could be right or wrong, according to one's personal opinion. Just the other day, an atheist argued with me to say there is nothing scientifically wrong about a son having consensual intercourse with his own mother, so long as they use contraception and do not hurt anyone else for that matter. So the point is, atheist morals can be extremely subjective. whereas religious beliefs can have, of course, subjective laws from varying from one religion to another. However, still overall, their premise of objective morals are usually consistent. But to say that without religion we can determine one set of rules that can lead to goodness is definitely misleading. So as we saw in conclusion, the video earlier, that it shows people torturing bulls and using it for entertainment and getting their thrills out of it. You may disagree with it as an atheist, but that atheist group that, let's say they're atheists, for example, that are practicing this, well, that's their opinion, and according to them, it's part of entertainment. And you may see it bad, but for them, it's something good. It's entertainment. They get a thrill out of it, and to them, there's nothing wrong with it. Just like you may kill and eat an animal, they kill for thrill, to have fun, and that's basically it. You eat to enjoy yourself. They do that activity to enjoy themselves. So again, there's no right or wrong. And even if you claim it's wrong, to them it's right. So you may see the number 6, they may see the number 9. Both are right. Both are wrong. So when these atheists want to mislead you to say if we move away from religion, we could decide for ourselves what is good and what is bad, and we can get to the better good of things, is totally misleading, because it just depends which atheist you speak to, and atheists will always disagree with one another on certain moral issues and so forth. So who gets to decide? Who gets to decide these moral issues? Who is right? Well, it just depends on who you speak to. It's all subjective. Whereas in religion, I believe there is a lot more consistency on what is right and what is wrong, because God is the creator and he gets to decide what is right and what is wrong, whereas human beings are basically confused on what is right and what is wrong. And even if you want to dismiss my point, to say that argument that moving away from religion leads to better good and so forth is clearly wrong, because of the very fact that people would still want to do evil actions or bad actions and justify them good just because that's what they like doing, because it's pleasing to them and it's just part of their entertainment. And your word is basically against them, their word is basically against you, and there's no scientific method to actually determine good or bad. It's basically just subjective. So moving away from religion actually causes more confusion if you think that it only leads to good, when it could be quite catastrophic and completely the contrary, when it could lead to bad. And even if you want to debate that, they could debate you back and say what we're doing is absolutely fine. This is my subjective opinion. Just like there are some people having sex with animals. Now, in some of the European countries where it's legal, they say it's okay. You know, you could eat animals, I can have sex with animals. That's basically their desires. You may say, well, that's raping animals. They shouldn't behave that way. Well, why is it to rape? They argue that you don't consent to killing animals before eating them, so why should I consent before having sex with them? This is what some of the atheists would say. So it's basically their argument against yours, and again, there's no objective morals. In fact, we can even take it a step further. There is no scientific method that says you can't rape an animal, or you can't rape a person, or you can't... I mean, the scientific method doesn't even suggest such claims or prove good and bad. And so these are just the social constructs of human beings. If a person wants to rape someone, he could rape them. In fact, animals do it in the animal kingdom. So it's actually biological. It's actually natural part of the animal kingdom. So, you know, you could have atheists who actually argue that. There are atheists who actually object to having sex with one's parents. Then you have atheists who actually say, no, as long as they're not hurting anyone's feelings, as long as they love one another, as long as they use protection and don't procreate, which could cause genetic deformations, they could actually have intercourse with one another. There's no issue in this as long as they love one another. So again, who decides this? So it's actually moving away from religion causes more darkness and more confusion. And it is absolutely misleading when they say, oh, it actually leads to goodness. Our own conscience can lead to goodness. We could decide for ourselves. And no, this is totally inaccurate and totally misleading.